We are no longer the land of the free and the home of the brave. We are now America, the reckless, unpredictable, predatory, rogue nation. That is this administration's, and it will be this president's legacy. And that's happening now. Honesty, honor, humility, truth, compassion, thoughtfulness, morality, true strength, and decency. Don't let anybody tell you that these things don't matter anymore. They do.
Bruce Springsteen taking it upon himself to refill and refuel the soul of our nation. Hi again, everybody. It's 5 o'clock now in New York. From a bang to a whimper, a week that started with Donald Trump's throwaway threats of mass murder and complete annihilation and a deliberate weakening of our global alliances is ending now the only way that it seems it could. With Donald Trump somehow putting America in a weaker position today, and Donald Trump being in a weaker position today, tactically, politically, and morally than he was on Monday. In normal times, in a healthy, functioning democracy, that would be, politically speaking, curtains, right? Lights out. Any politician in a democracy, having failed so spectacularly, having been suddenly abandoned by huge and very high-profile members of their own political coalition, a person in a democracy might recognize the inherent weakness of his or her position and retreat or recalibrate or improve. Or not, but it would come down to the same thing, a limping along to the sunset of one's political power or political lifespan. But as we've been telling you for a long time, right, these are not normal times. And our democracy isn't completely healthy. And Donald Trump isn't that sort of leader anyway. He has proven through word and through deed that he's instead an aspiring autocrat. And when an autocrat fails and is humiliated and is exposed as weak, he doesn't correct, right? He doesn't let go. He doesn't abandon the calamity. Instead, he tightens the grip. Remember the last time Donald Trump lost his grip? He incited an armed insurrection. He had an armed mob of his supporters march on our very seat of government. And we didn't know it at the time, but that was really just the beginning. What followed that was years now of undermining faith that his supporters and many Americans feel in our institutions and our very system of government, in democracy itself. And he did all that without any of it being true. To some extent, tragically, some of those efforts were successful. The question now is this: what's Donald Trump going to do this time? Well, lucky for us, he's telling us and showing us. The answer is right in front of us. He's going to cheat in the midterm elections. The scaffolding of that plan is already in full view. Last week, Trump tried to disenfranchise voters through perhaps illegal modifications to rules on mail-in ballots. His administration has refused to rule out sending ICE agents to polling places. He's pushed for federal control over our elections. And he has reportedly been presented with a draft executive order alleging Chinese interference as a predicate or a basis to be able to do so. In the same way athletes are taught to throw to where their target is going to be, not where they are, it is on us to examine where all of this is heading, where this is going to be in November. An aspiring autocrat, humiliated, diminished, but ready, willing, and perhaps still able to seize the reins of our democracy. That's where we start the hour. With me for all of it, voting rights attorney, founder of Democracy Docket, Mark Elias is here. And Protect Democracy executive editor Ian Bassin is here. Ian Bassin, how do you see this moment?
Well, I think our gift from Donald Trump is not only his incompetence, but his predictability. And you just laid it out, Nicolle. We know what he's going to do because he telegraphs it very clearly to us, and he's told us before. And he has a very clear playbook for trying to interfere with the elections in a way that is designed to help him when he is unpopular and is on track to lose catastrophically. And that playbook, to borrow from Sesame Street, involves the letter of the day being D. He will deceive, he will disrupt, and then he will deny. And by that, I mean, he starts by deceiving, because in our system, a autocratic president doesn't control all of the levers of our elections. In fact, they control none of the levers. We have a system where it is very distributed. And so he needs accomplices throughout the system to help him corrupt it. And to get them, he has to trick people. He has to deceive people into thinking that the elections are rigged, broken, rife with fraud, dead Chinese people voting. So he's going to go through deception in order to then persuade people to disrupt it, in order to get secretaries of state, state legislators, local clerks, members of Congress, judges to tilt the playing field. And if that doesn't work, then it will be deny. It will be like he did in January 6th of 2021, saying, actually, it's not that I lost, it's that I won. The good news is, because that is so predictable, we can prepare for it. We know it's going to happen, and that's how we can defeat it.
Mark Elias, how do you prepare for that?
Look, right now we're litigating 90 cases in 45 states around the country. I mean, that will come as a surprise to people how much litigation is already going on. But Donald Trump, runs an enterprise to take away your voting rights, to make it harder for you to vote, and also simultaneously an enterprise to make it easier for him to cheat. And we have to, there are days where, Nicolle, we focus more on the first, and there are days where we focus more on the second, but we need to understand these are integrated wholes. The same efforts to try to disenfranchise your ability to vote by making it, for example, very hard for married women who change their last name to be able to even register to vote, by making it harder for people to vote by mail. That just feeds into the efforts at the end of the process, where Donald Trump wants to take over the tabulation and the counting of votes. That's not my words; those are his. That it becomes easier for him to do those things if, in fact, he has begun by suppressing voting rights. So, look, we all have a part to play. We have a part to play in calling this out in public. We have a part to play in organizing everyday Americans against this. We have a part to play in making sure that the political leadership of this country are focused on it. And then we also have a part to play in the courts to stand up and make sure that we do not give a free pass, do not give an inch to Donald Trump's voter suppression and election subversion.
How do you, Mark, assess the advantages of Trump trying to rig the elections as the head of state?
Oh, look, you and I think, first started talking about these issues in 2020 when I came on your show. So it has been 6 years now. And in 2020, we talked about the fact that too many people were complacent and that Donald Trump was not going to go peacefully from power. And what he has learned since then is that he can abuse the powers of the federal government to a much greater extent than he did in 2020. In 2020, he was presented with a plan to seize ballots, but he didn't do it. Well, now he's president. He has gone back and he has seized ballots from Fulton County. He has subpoenaed ballots. His Department of Justice has subpoenaed ballot images from Arizona. He has an attorney general who is way more compliant. I mean, Todd Blanche, is even making, Pam Bondi look like a pillar of strength against Donald Trump. He gave a speech. He gave a speech the other day in which he said it is Donald Trump's duty to go after his political opponents, and that Todd Blanche, it was his job to purge the administration from anyone who does not do the job of who he referred to as his boss, Donald Trump. So we're up against much tougher opponents. We have the Department of Justice right now in court in 30 places trying to get access to sensitive voter data. So it is much harder this time, Nicolle. It is going to be rougher this time. The elections are going to be, they're going to be rockier periods. But, that just means that we all have to work harder.
Ian, how do you see the politics? Because there's a lot of tendency in political journalism to cover politics as static. And I think they're erratic, dynamic, and they're changing by the second. And we don't cover the MAGA coalition because they're injecting any sanity into that side. That ship is like, there's not even a ship, right? It's like in another universe. Donald Trump's autocratic practices have been enabled by the strength and durability of this political coalition. When it fractures spectacularly, I guess my question is, how can that best impede practices that are not democratic, small d democratic at all?
I mean, look, as I said, he needs accomplices throughout government if he really were to be successful at subverting an election. And he reached for them in 2020. He reached to Brad Raffensperger to try to get him to interfere. He tried to get the Republican leaders of the state houses in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan to interfere. And with the exception of 147 Republican members of Congress, every time he turned to those accomplices, he didn't get them. And I think the danger, as Mark alludes to here, is that he has more accomplices within the executive branch. And the question is whether he, having really purged the Republican Party of those people who were willing to stand up to him before, whether he will have more accomplices within the Republican Party now. And one interesting dynamic you're seeing is that, oddly, it's some of the fringe characters, the Alex Joneses of the world, the Candace Owenses of the world, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, who are fleeing from him now, whereas some of the more mainstream Republicans are the slower to move. I mean, it is a wild sort of Alice in Wonderland where Alex Jones sounds sane in response to what Donald Trump is saying about Iran, but Todd Young, the senator from Indiana, doesn't, right? And so I think the question here for the Todd Youngs of the world is, when are they going to read the writing on the wall that the Donald Trump ship is sinking and their future political fortunes? I'm not even appealing to their altruism or their oaths of office. I'm appealing to their self-interest. Their self-interest is to get off that ship as fast as possible. And if they do, not only will it serve their self-interest, but it will also serve the American Republic, because it will mean that when Donald Trump reaches to Republican members of Congress like he did in 2020, he doesn't get 147 of them to say, sure, we'll try to steal the election on your behalf. He basically ends up with a handful of sand.